What I would kind of like to do is, Chris, if you're okay, I'll kind of call on you for a second, just kind of like a little light review of what we've just covered. I know we were bouncing all over the place, but even what we were talking about right here during the break, kind of database models and relationships and like some of this kind of stuff. Let's see if we can kind of get the wheels rolling again. And then once we're done, if you guys are all okay, what I'd like to do is actually jump into some time cards and payroll stuff, because that also deals with expenses. Expenses is actually one of the spots where it technically has probably the most hands in the pie, okay? Expenses can pay for multiple things. Are you paying for inventory, bills, people, like et cetera, et cetera. And it starts cascading a little bit more. The other one that's really complicated is invoicing, because then you're basically buying and selling time and services and this and that. But those are the two kind of main players. POs just feed the system, okay? And they create a payable, okay? And then deposits say, hey, cool, I've already got some money, I'll throw it in the bank. I'll wrap that all together. They have fairly straightforward processes. Your expenses and your invoices, they're the ones that are kind of like, wow, I have to kind of flex a little bit because I have to play differently. But Chris, if you're okay, let's kind of just do a light recap and just kind of a verbal recap, and we'll just kind of go from there.
So before the break, we talked about sort of the cause and effect of expenses, how the expenses can affect the bank, inventory, liabilities. With that, we had the accounts payable, and also the purchase orders, and how those play into expenses, when they're paid, when they're not, how they affect the balance sheet, and how this all works together.
Great, great, great. The important thing is cause and effect. You notice that we never went to the balance sheet and just went plunk, 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 okay? What we did was something happened, okay? And literally what you have to think of is the horse in front of the cart, okay? The horse is your operations, what's happening, okay? The accounting is, what is accounting? Like, I'm not trying to belabor this point, but if you were to ask an accountant what accounting is, they would say it's the science of numbers or something like this, okay? But what is the real definition of accounting? Why do you even need accounting? If nothing happens, do you need accounting?
No.
Okay, if something happens, do you need accounting? Yes. And there are times that if nothing happens, you still need to account that nothing happened. But basically, there are some different mentalities, and we're not trying to create wars, we're not trying to do anything like this, but certain people are very touchy on this differentiation between operations and accounting, and sometimes it's basically personalities, like who is more organized and who is more from the hip, and like there are differences, and that's totally fine. And what we do inside of Adilas is we're like, hey, you know what? We're in a system here. We're in a system. Everything has cause and effect relationships. If you have Jimmy and you don't like Jimmy playing and things, and you're worried about his data and his habits because maybe he's kind of random and from the hip, give Jimmy just enough permissions to do what he needs to do. He'll get the ball started and he'll do this and this. And just like we talked about earlier, that water slowly forming into ice, it's very important that the water starts out really loosey-goosey. It needs to be that way for sales and for certain things happening. And then as it gets more and more firm, slush, snow, and ice, that's when you get your firm numbers. And basically you're just advancing it from stage to stage to stage. Okay? Cool. Shannon, any questions from online?
No, we are good to go.
Okay, great. Our next goal is we are going to play in payroll for a minute, okay? So basically, what our goal is just kind of payroll. Payroll has a number of different little pieces of the puzzle that kind of play into it. Shannon, what is payroll close to that might be important?
To users.
Correct, okay?
To expenses in your bank.
Okay, to expenses, to bank, okay? To time cards, okay? Payroll potentially could also go like this. What about commissions? Okay?
Yeah.
What about salary from admin? Okay? Like payroll feeds a number of these different pieces that once again affects expense receipts and banks. Okay? So this is kind of some of your different pieces of, if you will, of the payroll system. Payroll, once again, none of these pieces are required. Like technically, you could run Adilas and just track your customers and never leave this quadrant and be completely happy. That's like going to the dessert bar and just sitting there being like, I'm going to have a sundae, and I'm going to have some cake, and I'm going to have some of this, and you don't even go to the main courses or whatever. Like, Adilas will let you do that. It doesn't hurt it at all, because you basically keep advancing the ball only if it's good data. Payroll, here's what we're going to do. First thing we're going to do is let's check to see if we even have our own time card option. So I just clicked on time cards, and it gave me a little warning. Hey, according to the system, you are not currently assigned to an active department. Okay. Now the reason, and then it says, here's what you need to do. Do you have the department homepage permission? If we do have it, boom, we now have access to this department. Most general users, they won't. They're just clocking in and out. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to actually say, let's create an admin. Actually, I want to see who's in which department. Somebody was having fun. Carrie Klopp, Natalie Needlepoint, Susie Seamstress, Tommy Thread. Somebody was having way too much fun in this particular play site. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to actually say, should we put ourselves under sewing or stocking, or should we create a whole new department? Let's create a whole new department.
Sounds good.
Okay. And what do we want to call ourselves? Shannon, pretend like we're going to add Adilas Demo as a user to a department. What do we want to call this department? Just for fun. It doesn't matter what you name it. It could be admin, techs, sales, it doesn't matter. You just add as many buckets as you want.
Let's just do managers or supervisors or something like that. Supervisors.
Is that how you spell it? Supervisors?
Yeah.
Cool. So now we have 3 different departments. So under supervisors, if I click it, I can actually assign who needs to be under that department. Okay. So currently we're logged in as Adilas Demo, so I'm going to assign the user. The next step, let me back up for just a quick second, okay? So if we have departments, and you could technically have as many as you needed, the next step is you basically have this type of a scenario going on, okay? Department, okay? And then you have Joe user or whomever it is, okay? Pretend that this is your little dude. Now, he exists as a user in the system. And this is just a virtual container, but what it actually does is it says how many users are assigned to that, because then you can have potentially a manager who oversees 1 or more departments, and then you can have an admin who oversees all different departments, okay? Does that make sense, how you can kind of stack the puzzle depending on what's going on? Say this manager here, he only had a link to that department. So it's literally kind of creating a stacking, if you will, okay? So this user, we're going to assign him to a department, okay? So that's what we're doing. Basically, this gap and this bridge deals with what's his pay rates, what's his withholdings, what's his whatever. That's the connection that we actually create between the two. And if I draw too much, just let me know. So under supervisors, I'm going to click it. We're going to say Adilas Demo. The next stage is creating the welding link between them, okay? Kind of, okay, Adilas Demo, you're now going to be under this virtual department. Click here. So I'm under the supervisors department, and I'm going to say, let's go semi-monthly, and let's say that we are $13.50 an hour. I'm just giving random things. And let's say that we are just hourly right now. You have tons of different options as far as salaries and commissions. And one thing to note, if you do hourly, you need to do it like this, $13.50 per hour, okay? If you are salary and it's for semi-monthly, you might need to go something like this. Okay, does that make sense? How it would be like, hey, you're paid $1,500 every 2 weeks, or like you have to kind of make that adjustment, because then what it does is this basically behind the scenes has a multiplier in a way, kind of like, okay, how many times do I need to do that? So semi-monthly, $1,500 salary, that's one way to do it, or you could go something like this, $13.50 and hourly, or you can mix and blend some of the different ones depending on commissions. That was just kind of a little side note for you. Okay, we're going to skip all the commission rates right now. We're going to say we have 0 claimed. Let's pretend that we are single. Excuse me. And we're going to go ahead and put ourselves under Colorado right now. 0 dependents. We are not tax exempt, which means normal. Okay, you could say, hey, yes, I am tax exempt. and then you can actually start filling out additional pieces. If you want to pull additional withholdings from here, 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 we give you a number of different kind of wild card accounts, kind of these 5 right here. And this basically is like your AFLAC and IRAs and meal plans, and is it before or after taxes or whatever. Like, you can fill in some different pieces. This right here is where you would put the things. So say you wanted $25 meal plan, subtract, like before taxes, after taxes, whatever. Like, and then that, okay, I need to make a small disclaimer right here, okay? As soon as you start getting into payroll settings, this deals with totally the government and some of the different things like this. What we do at Adilas is we give you the form. Hey, here's the pieces we're looking for. It's between you and your accountant, or you and the government, or like as far as how things actually get connected. Our job is just to kind of like, hey, here's the pieces. You connect it. So I wanted to just kind of make that small disclaimer, but we just give you the pieces of the puzzle. Let's say that we get overtime as well. And right now, the only option we have is for overtime is time and a half, either yes or no. Okay? So like, depending on what's going on. I'm going to come down, and we'll just use our current state unemployment settings, which currently doesn't even look like they've been set up. But I'll just say add that to the department. So right now, I just created that welding link between supervisors and Adilas demo. This is fairly new, and maybe it's not even really all that important, but basically what happened is on here, it used to be once you created this link, we didn't have any way to edit it. And this may not even make a bit of difference right here, but I just wanted to let you know this is brand new, that there is actually a way that you can actually flip that. Admin, change the assignment, and I can flip it into a different department, okay? But when you do that, it does kind of prompt you and say, hey, just so you know, this will flip any other records that we have so that it's tracked underneath that, because that gets into database logic and what's connected to what. You don't just randomly want to flip something if it's all super tied behind the system. So that is kind of a new feature. We had a person who needed to do it, and they asked for it, and hey, good idea. We constantly do that. New features all the time. Anyway, regardless, here's the department homepage. Here's where all of our different assignments are. We're currently at hourly at $13.50. And just because I have this little welding link, if I go home and I click on time cards now, I now have access. Last known action, none. Okay? But I'm going to go ahead and clock in. Start work, clock in. So automatically it knows that I'm in this department, and it started a digital time card for me. Okay? Super simple, super simple. Let's pretend that we were actually doing just a little bit of work. We're in here, we're browsing our histories, we're kind of popping through. Oh, look, here's the cool little POs that we did just a minute ago. Oh, look, 2 of our checks have been printed. Here's how many payments we've actually made. Let's take a look at these payments. Something happens, basically time happens. It's going. Here's a 0 on account. If I wanted to click on that, hey, what's going on here? Oh, okay, that's what we owed to Adilas. Meanwhile, what happens is in the background, time is ticking. Okay, so if I click back on time cards, hey, last known time was at 3:14. Currently, mine says 3:15. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I'm actually done. Going home, clock out. So it looks like I have 0.01 hours. Okay, like technically, what I was doing is trying to stall just so it kind of showed that it was actually calculating time. If we need to, one of the cool things is so this is currently on a page called My Hours, which is another permission. Okay, so I can look at it, I can do all sorts of stuff. However, I can't edit anything because I'm limited on my scope as far as permissions and whatnot. However, remember how we drew kind of that little pyramid where you have the user and the departments and then the managers and then the admin? Depending on what the other permissions are and how it's set up, and depending if you have that permission, you could actually be a manager over sub-departments, either a single department or multiple. Or you could be the admin person that has reign over any of those pieces. Where do you guys want to go, managers or admin? They have similar features. The only difference is a manager is limited to who he's assigned to versus admin that's global. That's literally the difference between them. Let's go admin. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool. So from this interactive map, one of the ways that you can get to the admin time clock is through the payroll. If you click here, there's a link that says admin time clock. When it was originally created, we primarily were running off of the classic homepage. And so there was a direct link right to the admin time clock right from System Liabilities. It's kind of who you owe money to, okay? But because of the map and we couldn't fit all of those little buttons on stuff, it had to be buried just a little bit level deeper. Either way, you'll get to the admin time clock. Once you're in the admin time clock right here, you actually see whoever's logged in for the day, including IP addresses, so you can tell if they actually logged in when they got to the store or if they logged in from their cell phone on the way in. Okay, like they'll have different IP addresses. And so those are kind of some interesting pieces of the puzzle. If you needed to monitor something or modify something, all you have to do is just click on one of these things and you could actually back it up for the user. Say that we actually started at 1:10 right after lunch. Okay? So you'll notice in the admin mode the notes are required. In the non-admin notes, the notes are not required. Okay? Okay, just some sort of a note, and you say update that. Okay? Basically, it makes it stick. It actually says, hey, the original date and time was this. We're kind of capturing already a little bit of a history of who's touched this thing. So if I go back to the admin time clock, I now have from 1:10 to 3:15, so 2.09 hours. Okay? You'll also notice that it flagged it. It says, hey, somebody touched this record. Okay? And if we needed to, we could literally go into it and say, who did touch it? So for the plain user, right here, when he goes to time cards, he's got this. He can click on View My Hours. Here, he still has the same flag, but it pulls it across to him. He just doesn't have any way to edit it. Let's go ahead and just do one more clock in and out, just so we have a piece of the puzzle. Start work, and this time I'm just going to add notes for fun. Clock in. Okay, so you can add notes wherever you need to add notes, and they then become searchable if you needed to later on. It's almost like a miniature journal. Okay, so you see how this one has not been filled out yet. It's kind of temporarily still in La La Land. What happens there is if you were to try to go pull payroll for this particular person, it would actually prompt you, hey, just so you know, you have a time card that's kind of, it's not done. Like I can't really process payroll yet. So you guys want to see that error message? Or okay, let's pretend that I'm no longer the Adilas demo user. I'm now the admin person, and I'm going to do payroll. And I'm going to come down, and I'm going to say calculate new payroll, and I'm going to select my person. So there's multiple pages on this little, these are all different forms or different functions of what you can do for payroll. This is prep, this is prep. These are kind of like getting to individual invoices or documents, especially for people who do commissions. That's very important to kind of check to see, okay, what am I paying them? Because you have to kind of like advance those balls to new levels. Like just because a new sale happens doesn't mean it's automatically approved for payroll. If you're literally doing commissions, there's another little bubble that you have to advance that ball and say, okay, you have been approved, and I got all my paperwork, and I got all, like, you may not want to pay your people just because the sale happened. You might want to say, okay, buddy, wrap it up, and that actually is an incentive for them because then it's kind of like, instead of just like, bam, 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 here you go, like, oh, man, you know what, we're still missing $5 on that. And so, like, it puts it back in their court in a way. So there is an extra bubble if you're dealing with commissions because you kind of have to advance that ball just slightly. We'll go right here under the Calculate section, Adilas Demo, and let's go ahead and go from the 16th to the 30th. Ideally, like right now we're halfway through this period. That's why it backed up and said, hey, your semi-monthly would have been payroll for the last couple of weeks. Okay, so it's trying to kind of remember. Once you set it into a new thing, it'll remember the new setting for your current session. Okay. So we'll just hit calculate. Okay, came in. Here's our stuff. It only shows 2.9 hours on that. And let's see here. Okay, awesome. I was actually expecting it to show an error message right here for this particular one as far as like, whoa, like, that you you should have had to go in and actually modify that one so that it would actually do the whole thing. However, nothing is being calculated, so it's currently pulling it in as 0. Okay. One thing that it will do is if you actually have a wrong date, I know that it will show you potential problem. Like say, for instance, we didn't clock out until yesterday at whatever time for some reason. So the dates would be different between 26 and 27. I'll just hit update on that so it has a physical thing. I'm going to go back just a couple pages right here to my calculate payroll, and I'm going to hit refresh on this just so that it can kind of, oh, hey, unable to calculate the hours for the pay, problem with the in and out dates. Check his time cards. If you click on his time card right here, it actually kind of says, hey, those dates don't match. Like the only time, what happens is this was actually developed kind of clear back in 2002-ish, 2003. And when we first did the time card application, we had to make everything fit into a 24-hour interval. So we didn't want it to be rolling over the top of the different dates and times and stuff. So it basically just wants it to be changed here to the 26th. One thing that is kind of cool on this, like I'm going to hit back for just 1 second. And I just want to show you one other place where this happens. Say you're in here and you actually clicked on the clock in and out and the my hours. It would actually prompt you right here, check dates, because it's got a problem. Okay. I'll just go back to the admin time clock and physically fix that. Payroll, admin time clock, go down, here's the problem right here, and it says it right here as well. This is just payroll prep, and we'll change that back to 26. Update that clock in and out, boom, we're good. And now we need to just get back to the payroll homepage. We'll come in here, Adilas demo, pull it. Okay, there's all of my different little pieces that it pulls in. It pulls in according to what you tell it in that settings, hourly, this, how many exemptions, allowances, etc. It starts pulling it into this format right here of what's going on. I'm going to scale out for just a second just so you can kind of see what this page looks like. I know we're way out, but this is basic information. This is hours. If you were doing commission, there would be a whole nother line and bar to show all the different little commissions. This whole section right here is kind of the add form. This whole thing right down here to that bottom submit button is a virtual add form. This just kind of pulls in the data, and this is the add form. The key part to payroll, I know you can't read it right now, is this guy right here, gross pay, okay? What has to happen is these columns right here have to add up to this in order to advance through the ball, okay? If you make any changes here, it's no problem. This will eventually get updated. And then there's a little checkbox at the bottom that will actually recalculate the taxes. Taxes are pretty intense. Like you have state and federal, and are you single or married, and how many dependents, and like there's multiple different lookups, okay? So when you do anything inside of payroll, your main goal is just to get it correct to the gross pay, okay? And then the system can help you recalculate that. So like some people have worried, they're like, oh my goodness, I changed this, but it didn't change any of the taxes. That's because it'll be changed when you submit it, and it'll be, okay, let me recalculate this according to those numbers. So that's what's kind of going on. I just wanted to show you pulling out just a little bit so you can kind of get an idea of what was going on. Okay, so basically what it did is it pulled in $28.21, which would basically be my my current value, and then I would come down here. Here's my gross pay. This is the piece that I was talking about. If I did make any changes, this little local math help, all it does is just sum this little column up. It doesn't change any of these other withholding options. And then this is the guy that says, do you want the system to recalculate this, yes or no? Once you create it, it technically creates a time card for this person. Not a time card, but basically a pay stub, if that makes sense. It's ready for a receipt if you actually wanted to pay them. Looks like their net pay was $26. Okay, their gross pay was $28.21. By the time we took out a couple little teeny taxes, they're only going to get $26. We'll just go ahead and hit create expense. comes here, ties it in. How do we want to pay? Check 2294, and we basically say employee net. Awesome. And the location is the sewing corp. Create the expense. So at this point, expense receipt number 8 is technically tied in the background to this pay stub right here. It has all of the different pieces of information on it. You're now able to print your check off. You can do whatever you need it to do. Okay.